The Catholic Underground is only possible through your prayer and financial support. Please go to CatholicUnderground.com and click the Donate tab to find out how you can help us out. Enjoy the episode.
From the Catholic Underground.
Hello there, welcome to Catholic Underground, your Catholic guide to the digital continent. I'm Father Chris Decker, and this is episode number 169. Joining me, Joshua LeBlanc from cybercatholics.com. Hello, Joshua. How you doing?
Good evening, everyone.
We've also got Father Ryan on the tubes there. Father Ryan joins us from Camp de Louisiana. Father, how are you doing?
I am a delight, Father.
Well, that's wonderful. That's quite wonderful. Yes. Well, let's jump right in. Imagine you're a megachurch and you've been wrought with some financial issues. What happens when you go bankrupt? Do you just fade into the night?
Well, I guess this is the conundrum of the century, because never heard of a megachurch going bankrupt.
Well, no, that's true. That's true. But we've heard a lot about the Crystal Cathedral in California. And it appears that there are many suitors looking to have a piece of this big giant glass pie, and you'll know that the Reverend Schuler and his entire ministry there have been having some financial difficulties, and so there is a group that wants to turn the Crystal Cathedral into a college of sorts, into a medical facility. But then, of course, out of left field, we have the Diocese of Orange releasing a statement on Wednesday saying that Bishop Todd Brown has authorized a law firm to explore the possibilities to take over, to use the Crystal Cathedral there in Santa Ana to meet the needs of the 1.2 million Catholics in Orange County, which, of course, is the 11th largest diocese in the world. I didn't know that. It's a lot of Catholics.
Wow.
So the attorney representing the Crystal Cathedral said that the Catholic Church would use this cathedral's core buildings, including the all-glass sanctuary, which would make it impossible for the Crystal Cathedral to continue as a ministry. And he also said the diocese would obviously buy the property to use it for themselves, which would be a big impediment as far as the Crystal Cathedral is concerned. It's really interesting. What do you think about the possibility? I mean, who's to say what's going to take place with a lot of these mega churches, perhaps as they realize that the gospel of prosperity kind of peters out after a while? Could you see a time in which the Catholic Church takes over these mega churches and makes them into parishes?
Yeah, I could see the possibility of something like that happening, but as the church begins to recover her identity, as the church, like the Crystal Cathedral is a good example. Nothing about the Crystal Cathedral says God. It's a big, ugly building, and it's clear, and it says, "Please don't look in here. Look outside of here. Look anywhere but here." And outside, it's just ugly, and it may have something. Maybe we'll have a museum, and it may make a great spectacle. As Catholics are trying to recover our identity of what architecture really says about our faith and about what the building and the furniture actually mean for our faith, I think more and more we're going to look at spending the same money we could use to buy a big, ugly Crystal Cathedral to replace the, my God, ugly cathedral that's presently living in Los Angeles. And the ugly cathedral that's presently sitting in the Diocese of Orange. And I think it may be the next 5 or 10 years that we'll be spending big money on these kind of things. And certainly those buildings will become available. But I think that in 10 to 15 years, we're going to have to look up and say all of these horrific redesigns and what a lot of us are calling renovations are going to have to go. And the money is not going to be spent buying new ugly buildings.
Right.
It's going to be spent rebuilding and building new buildings that really give glory to God, not just that makes kind of random and arbitrary statement.
Yeah, Josh, what do you think?
Well, I think Father Ryan has hit the proverbial nail on the head there, is that, while it certainly seems to be a good property in that the location, and I don't know the how Orange itself is set up, so that it may be difficult to buy property in Orange for the diocese to build a cathedral. I don't know how practical it is for the diocese to buy this property. As Father Ryan pointed out, I mean, essentially it is a glory to itself, in being such a large glass building that literally your focus is not on what's going on inside, as we as Catholics would recognize, but really is allowing you to see everything that's going on in the outside world. It's not a refuge from the outside world to Calvary, which I think is the big problem in and of itself. I just don't know how the diocese can use this property. And again, knowing how some dioceses can be. I mean, look at, for example, Los Angeles, when they built that monstrosity of what they have now compared to what they had before, that beautiful cathedral. And then they built this thing, which I'm sure Archbishop Gomez is lamenting. I don't think that the diocese can go from what it has now to purchase this building and it be an improvement. I mean, their diocese may believe that's the case, and they may not be concerned about the aesthetics of the property. May think, no, this is an architectural beauty, and we can use it for the I just don't know.
And that seems to be part of the idea behind it too, because it's a well-known structure. I mean, whereas we in the South here in Louisiana really don't know that much about the Crystal Cathedral, at least I don't. Of course, since birth I've kind of been in a different in a different circle, but they like the idea that it's famous basically, and so to transform something that is a landmark in Orange County could be part of the reasoning behind it. You know, if you Catholicize something that's a big non-Catholic symbol, it wouldn't be the first time that it's happened. You know, I think of the Pantheon becoming the Church of All Saints, but even still, the Pantheon was altered. So that glory could be given to God. You know, they didn't continue to keep the altar in the center and let the smoke rise up the center. They moved an altar to the front of the structure. You know.
Yeah. And I think from that point of view, it's a really good thing, because I've always said that there's going to be a time in the history of the church where all of these mega churches, all of these Protestant churches, are ultimately people are going to become Catholic. And I think we're going to see eventually, may take until the end of time, where all of these falsities begin to relax and begin to disappear. And all of these Protestant churches become Catholic again. We absorb these as Catholic churches because, to be honest, some of these Protestant churches are more Catholic looking than some of our Catholic churches.
That's true.
I think the ultimate problem is, though, this is going to be more and more of a problem. We're going to start seeing Catholic. I remember, 20 years ago, I mean, I don't remember it, but we know the history tells us that there was a time whenever the old Catholic churches and convents were being sold off to Protestants. And I think now that we're seeing a time where our Protestant churches are being bought by Catholics, it's going to become more and more of a situation that the church is going to have to really start to figure out, how do we rectify? How do we use these properties? Can we use them? Because I think it's a good problem to have.
That's true. It is a very good problem to have. I mean, we when it comes to the land, perhaps that the Crystal Cathedral's on, they're talking about land. But obviously, they probably won't destroy the building. But some of it could be, what can we say? What can we rectify? What is in keeping with traditionally Catholic architecture, and what isn't? I know, Josh, in the city of Lafayette, you and I were driving the other day, and I said, gee, that sure is a beautiful church. And you says, well, you know why it's so beautiful? It's a whole campus that was given to a Protestant denomination. It was Catholic.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, well, golly, I can't believe that they would give a church like that up, especially so close to the local university. But that, I guess that's a good example, too, of how much was lost and what needs to be regained.
I specifically think of whenever we went to school at St. Ben's, you recall the old convent that's just down the road with the chapel that they turned into a catering
facility. That's right. Yeah.
Facility that the seminarians on many occasions worked events there.
We did.
Catering. And it was so horrible walking around with these trays, serving people and whatnot. And you're looking and going, well, that's where a side altar would have been. This is where the sanctuary was. And it's all just there. It's like they just ripped everything out and left the sanctuary like it would have been and left it like a church. And you just feel this sense of sacrilege.
Yeah, I was never really happy. Even though they deconsecrated the church, I was never really happy the fact that they were proud about the fact that the bar was actually some of the marble from one of the side altars. I just like, oh, my goodness. It's strange. It's strange to see those sorts of things. But
I suppose it's better than ending up at a ice cream place.
Well, that's true. It's better than ending up on a slab.
Horrible. Yeah.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. It could just be the diocese's interest. We don't know what will become of it, but we'll continue to watch it, as we will. Well, does it really matter that Facebook announced that they were going to start a one-on-one video service?
Nope.
I can't really find myself caring all that much. I've tried. I haven't tried.
Well,
let me disclaim. I haven't tried the new Facebook/Skype video chat.
I can't find it.
Yeah, well, that's why I haven't. That's why I haven't tried it. But I just can't see that's that groundbreaking, unless Facebook, and it might have been you, Father Ryan, saying this, but it seems to me that all Facebook is trying to do nowadays is try to get you to stay in Facebook.
No, it's definitely a problem. They are facing the same problem that AOL faced, in that they're a walled-in garden.
Yeah.
And nowadays everything boils down to how can you tie in, and that's great as long as people are writing apps for Facebook. But I think some people are getting weary of having to go and find it and connect it on Facebook, and then you've got a very, very cluttered kind of front page, and something that the security settings change a lot, and there's just a sense of wanting some more space. And of course, video chat is good, but it's ubiquitous at this point. You can do it from pretty much anything, and right now it's just a matter of honing it, making it a little better and a little better. And of course, viewers of this show know, we're using very expensive, high quality equipment, and I still look like I'm a crazy spastic person because I don't have enough bandwidth to keep up. And nothing, no new service is going to change the simple fact there are certain limits on bandwidth, and I don't know that this is really going to be all that life-changing of an event. One of the things that makes Facebook cool is you can carry on a conversation, quote unquote, with 50 people at the same time. Video seems radically limiting, and seems contrary to the direction that Facebook is trying to go. But just given it's so ubiquitous, given it's so easy to start a video chat with somebody just using a browser, I don't know this is going to make as big a difference or make a big impact as Facebook might like it to.
And frankly, when I'm using Facebook, I don't want to video chat with somebody. That's just a personal thing. But if I'm using Facebook, first of all, I don't use Facebook chat. I rarely use that. The instant messaging thing for me is kind of dead. I don't really like to do that. But there's something about being able to chat on your time frame. Somebody wants to private message, or if it's in a comment box or whatever, that's fine with me. But I usually, if I'm on Facebook, I'm not really interested in minute and second to second chatting, with somebody. If I want to do that, I'll pick up the cell phone, or maybe I'll invite them over to Skype. But I don't know. I can't really see integrating the two.
Well, I think ultimately that is a sign of the times. I mean, you talked about jumping immediately to the cell phone. Your cell phone has been out of commission for a couple of days, and I feel like I can't contact you at all.
No, that's true.
because I keep, and this is sad. I saw your Facebook post that said my cell phone is out of commission. Yet I kept picking up the phone and going, why is it going to his voicemail so fast every time I call him? I'm like, forget this. And so I just, I've been out of touch with you for the past couple of days because immediately the first thing I do is pick up the cell phone.
Right.
And I think that's one of the greatnesses of the iPhone. Very rarely do I use Skype. To be honest, I use Skype only when it seems like I really have to.
Yeah.
I use Skype video chat only on a weekly basis to do this podcast. I've used Skype. I use Skype out when I really need to get a hold of somebody on a landline that I want to bring into a Skype conversation. And also, I've used Skype when we were in Rome and didn't want to use any cell phone minutes or anything like that. Found a Wi-Fi, got on Skype. But otherwise, I don't really use video chat a great deal. And I think there's something to be said, as heavily new media as all three of us are and involved in it, that even still, we look to the cell phone. I mean, even for me, FaceTime on the cell phone was not that big of a deal. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's something else. I mean, whenever I'm talking to somebody and I want to get across essential information, I just think of either voice or text. Yeah. Now, maybe that makes me a more old media than I'd like to think, But it's interesting.
Well, no,
Go ahead.
I think that at some level, Facebook is trying to be, or its main purpose is to be kind of a TiVo for that stuff.
Yeah.
It's a time delay or a time shift for those kind of things, for relationships and personal experiences, and the notion of wanting to be able to have a video encounter with somebody seems like something that should be more immediate and something that should be more available in whatever form you want. If I want to have a video chat, which I never really do, but if I did,
we can see why.
But I would take out my phone, just like you say.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's because I'm old media. I think it's because why would I want to sit in front of my computer to have a video chat? If I can carry the thing with me, if I can sit in the lounge chair, I can go out on the front porch. Why would I? We're trained nowadays that you don't have to be sitting there next to a corded phone.
Yeah.
You have a cell phone, use it. Go wherever you are. And so why would I want to suddenly start tethering myself by developing friends who insist on video chatting over Facebook when there are a million other ways to video chat? Heck, I've got Skype on my phone, and everybody else with a smartphone can have it for free too.
That's right.
Well, and coming from a podcast that releases itself every week in a video format, I feel it weird to say that I don't find video such a big deal. That's just me. I like to watch video podcasts. I like to watch videos per se. But video conferencing, I don't use a whole lot, which is why I was never on board and I never thought it was a big deal to get rid of my first iPad to get an iPad 2 simply for the mediocre camera.
Mm-hmm.
Look, how many times on all of us can we count the number of times we use FaceTime?
Yeah,
3.
I can literally count on one hand. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. The issue it comes down to, I think you pointed out, is that communication has to be quick and effective.
Yeah.
And I think video has just not gotten there yet. And I don't know that it's going to get there anytime soon because, to be honest, there's something at least still semi-anonymous about a phone call and text, rather than somebody watching you and you watching them.
Yeah.
It's just very weird, sitting in. I could sit in my bed at 11 o'clock at night watching TV and make a phone call or send a text message. And it doesn't matter what I'm wearing. I could be sitting there in a tuxedo or a wife beater. If I'm making a video call, then you've really got to be paying attention. That's some people, I guess, don't really want to worry about.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I think we've all watched enough sci-fi shows, to know, things like Minority Report, Star Trek, Star Wars, even, the notion of being able to just speak, like Josh says, is very, very important. And in those shows, they never show all the difficulty and drama that comes from getting a late night emergency call. And so, and you're there in bed and somebody says, "Oh, Father, you need to come out and anoint the sick," and you've got a giant video of somebody who can see you laying in the bed. That's just disturbing beyond imagination.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't seem like the end trajectory, then it seems like it's never going to be something more than a niche market or more than a boutique kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I could see it being cool for parents. I could see it being cool for family-oriented kind of things. I could see it being very useful for business. But I don't know that it's something ordinary people want. And hey, maybe the tweens are different. Maybe the 13s and 14-year-old, which is what this is definitely aimed at.
It's what scares me.
But I don't know. I don't know what market they're shooting for because all those people have phones.
Well, I think the market they're shooting for, and this is just me, I think the market they're shooting for is that, again, as you pointed out, Father Ron, they're trying to keep people on Facebook. You see all of these competing services that are continuing to come out with Facebook. For example, look at Google+. Google+ is attempting to be this, at least my initial thoughts from having used it for only a day or so now, is that it's attempting to be another Facebook. And to be honest, my comment so far is that if it's just something else I've really got to check, it's just going to go the way of Wave.
Yeah. Yeah, and frankly, to move into Google+, I'm still trying to figure it out. Even though they say that it's supposedly very simple. In fact, I can show you. In case you're seeing some stuff in the video that's kind of weird, one of our Black Magic cards decided it was going to die along with one of our USB video dongles. And so I have to kind of manually rig the system. So Father Ryan's video disappears magically as I switch to the computer. Yeah, it's something else, folks. But if you look at Google Plus on the screen, if you're watching this in the video cast, it looks a lot like Facebook. It does. The things that are kind of cool is you can take your stream, if you will, which are certain circles of friends. And so if I want just my friends stream, just my family, just my acquaintances, what they've been talking about, or just the Catholic Underground folks, then I can see all of them kind of itemized by that, or just the whole stream if I want.
That seems so helpful.
It is pretty
Compared
helpful.
to the Facebook, the stream of consciousness from Facebook.
Yeah, I very much I like the idea. Like I said, I'm still kind of getting used to it in my head. But there's also something called Sparks, which is kind of cool, and that's basically keywords of tags of stuff that you're interested in. And so you'll see I have Catholic and Catholic liturgy. If I click Catholic liturgy, it gives me basically an RSS feed of things that are tagged with Catholic liturgy. And so it'll take me to those various web pages. So that's a neat little thing too. And you can share that with people that are in your streams. And you can also let's see, what else can you do? You can +1 it so that it shows up as something that you personally like. I don't know. Can I use like in this instance? Is that okay? Not sure. And then, of course, they have the Google Hangout, which I haven't tried yet either. And so basically, if the Catholic Underground crew wanted to get together and, quote, hang out, then I could click Start a Hangout, and then that would open the Google Talk gadget. And then we could do video chat that way. And I think part of it, too, is knowing your audience, because there are some times where we as Catholic Underground, whenever we're preparing for a show or something, we do need to have the ability to see what's going on. We need to be able to see what's happening, but most of the time not. So I guess maybe, in fact, I noticed with Google Hangout, you can mute your camera, as they put it, or you can mute the audio. So sometimes you may not want to be on video, but you could still maybe have a muted camera audio conversation going on. So Google Plus looks like, I mean, do you think it could be the Facebook killer? Father Ryan, you probably can't talk about that just because you haven't gotten your Google Plus invite to work yet.
Well, actually, I think that based on the demos and the videos I've watched, and of course you can never really trust a video because they made this great thing for Wave and destroyed it. But I think it very well could be, as much as a Facebook killer can be a Facebook killer, because I think there is a certain group of people that just are fed up with Facebook, and depending how easy it is to interact with the two, like there's already a way, somebody posted online, to update your Facebook status from Google Plus. If there is a way, to in the background to to keep up with the Facebook community, but to do it on Google Plus, or if there's a way to stop the noise, like Susan Powder used to say, stop the insanity. I think that's the market that Google Plus can hit right out of the ballpark, because I know that I spend as much time muting people on Facebook as I do reading about people. And accepting friend requests from people I have no idea about, because apparently it's offensive to say, no, I don't want to accept you as a friend. I'd love to not have to deal with that drama.
Yeah, and from my point of view, I actually have to disagree with Father Ryan on that, because, I mean, we've seen, at least how it stands now, I don't think this is a Facebook killer at all, because everything they've done, Facebook can implement immediately. For example, we see how, Father Chris, you pointed out the Google Talk functionality. To be honest, I've never used Google Talk. The fact that the fact that Facebook chose to integrate with Skype, I think is going to be a big deal for people who want that functionality, because there's more of a market for Skype. The whole deal of being able to click on your particular group and have it bring up just posts from that group. Look, let's be honest. I mean, Facebook could do that with probably 20 lines of code, and because I organize all of my people into groups anyway. So I've got groups with friends, and then I have CU listeners and things like that. So I divide all of my groups I have these groups that I've already divided. Yeah. I mean, all they've got to really do is make that appear in the right sidebar, let you click on it, then you only see status updates from those people.
Yeah, for me, I think that the groups thing came too late in Facebook, because right now, I mean, I've got, I don't know how many thousand friends that I have on group. They have full access to my profile. And, now that I'm thinking, well, gee, I'm not going to go through 1,000 faces and say, yeah, I know
I did it.
I need to do that.
It was worth it.
Yeah. But now I'm thinking, well, if Google Plus is going to become kind of a new opportunity, could this be the chance just to be reborn into a new social media reality?
And I suppose that's a way to look at it. I mean, at least from my point of view, is I want one central place where I can do everything. Yeah. I don't want to have to update 12 sites. I mean, Facebook and Twitter, that's enough for me. I mean, I think it's because I recognize Twitter has a completely different functionality, and if I wanted to, I could have my Facebook update my Twitter for me. But I don't want to have to go, oh, I've got 6 different social networks that I'm having to keep up. And for me, it's still Facebook.
Yeah, and I think just by sheer presence, Facebook, at least for now, is going to have the overarching advantage.
It certainly has the namespace. I watched a terrible BBC show called It's Improvisation, Dr. Mark Watson. It was a very, very bad, stupid show. Mm-hmm. It was an improvisation show, but they had an entire segment where they brought an audience member up and they said, okay, these improv comics are going to improvise eulogies about you based entirely on your real Facebook page. And they have a green screen behind them. They bring up the girl's Facebook page. They scroll through it a little bit, and then the people proceed to make fun of, pick on her based on the pictures and stuff on her Facebook page. That kind of mind share, takes a lot of work to undo and undermine. And so, Facebook, there certainly has the membership, they have the ubiquity, and they have the mind share. And overcoming that is going to be very, very tough.
I guess the real question is, which one are you going to end up spending more of your time on? Because I mean, if it's me, I'm probably going to now add Google Plus into my already big list of things that I check day to day. I don't like the fact that
I just have a feeling for me it's going to become like Plurk.
It may become like Plurk. You remember Plurk?
I hate Plurk.
Does it still exist?
Probably.
No. It's basically dead. Maybe a few people who are diehards, but it's mostly dead.
Who are still plurking. Yeah.
It's still there.
Yeah, it's still there. It's doing its thing. I never really liked the avatars that you get for some sort of karma thing. So it's like, I don't like the graphic design, so I'm just going to stop using it. In other news, we're talking a lot about the social media engines that we use, but e-readers are becoming more and more of a reality for a lot of people. A lot of people are putting down the paper. In just the past 6 months, according to a Pew Research poll and study, and they're picking up the tablets, the tablet PCs or the Kindles or the Nook or whatever, what have you. And it really is something because, I mean, I look at just my library here. This is just one of my bookshelves, and I've got so much on it. And yet, really, it could all be contained within just one little tablet in, I hate to say it, in a cloud.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I really like the ebook opportunity. I really do. In fact, I'm reading 3 books right now, and it's a lot easier to flip back and forth through them, as kind of my whim takes me. But I'm also reading 3 paper books as well.
Yeah, and I think it's something about the technology that people really like. For example, the e-readers, because they're so easy on the eyes. I think that's the big draw. I haven't used the new Nook color. I have checked out the original Nook, and I have used the Kindle, which I really am in love with the Kindle. I haven't bought one because the iPad seems sufficient for me, the Kindle app in the iPad. But I think the fact that you can simply look at this and it's very easy on the eyes, and that the again, as you pointed out, that you can have all of these books in one place. Yeah. I don't think it's ever going to replace the paper book because there's something nice about having that paper copy that you can just pick up. And my big issue with ebooks is what happens when Big Brother decides that they don't want you to have an ebook that you've got on your tablet.
That's true.
I mean, it wouldn't be a big deal for 50 years down the road to say these e-readers are still around. Amazon becomes communist and decides that they want to control what you have on your e-reader, which you don't, and then you wake up one morning and all of a sudden half of your ebooks are gone because somebody in the government didn't agree with what you were reading. Now, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist. I'm just saying it's completely possible.
Yeah, it is possible, and that's when we get Senator McCarthy's frozen head, and we attach it, to some electrodes, and then he starts having the e-reader investigations. And
of course, using the evil voice.
That's right.
I
think that, but the big deal with e-reader is the barrier to entry. Like when I first got my first Kindle, it was $250, which was more than I wanted to pay for it. But as Josh said, the experience was spectacular. I sat on the porch outside and read 200 or 300 pages, and it was very natural, very good. And that was even with the kind of clunkier old Kindle. Nowadays, if you're willing to accept a few advertisements, there really are out of the way kind of advertisements. You can get a Kindle for $115.
Yeah.
And you can have easy access. There's a lot of stuff that people forget comes free with an e-reader that You can get a ton of books on Amazon that are 100% free, and you just go to the site and you say, send this to my Kindle, and you can put 200 or 300 books on your Kindle, no problem. There's a lot of very, very strong advantages to getting it for a very inexpensive appliance. Whereas if you decide you want to go with an iPad or something like that, well, then you've really got to move up more toward the price of a cheap laptop. And so I think e-readers become a great entry market, especially for older people who have very specific needs.
Yeah, it's interesting. Go ahead, Josh.
I think the one thing that e-readers have to come into their own market, though, is that it's driving me crazy that you can't get, or for most places, they delay these ebooks before a week or so after the original book comes out. I remember when Pope Benedict XVI's new book came out, you couldn't get the darn thing in an ebook format for about a week or so. And that's not going to help the market grow. I mean, I realize you're trying to sell paper copies, but it seems to me you would make more on the electronic copy than you do on the paper copy.
Yeah. And then, of course, there are crazy people like me. I have the paper copy, and then I go and buy the e-copy as well so that I can have it more mobile, I wonder, a lot of people talk about the e-book as being a book killer in the same way that the internet is supposedly a newspaper killer. And I really can't see that happening. I can't.
Well, I think people tend to think that all print media is the same thing. But, anybody who really spends any time reading knows that the book, a magazine, and a newspaper are three fundamentally different experiences.
Yeah.
One has a very specific purpose of being long form and text, and formatting is secondary. With a newspaper, you have a lot of individual chunks, and formatting is basically, cacophonous. And then with a magazine, formatting is everything, and you're trying to give experience and not simply data. Yeah. And when you think about those as three distinct forms of text, then you can see that the internet lends itself to the chaos of newspapers, but not to books and not to magazines. And you could see that an e-reader will increase the profits that are made from books because of the easiness of use. But I don't think an e-reader would ever be something that could have any effect on the other two markets, just as, I don't think there's anything that's necessarily going to get in the way of magazines. Magazines, to me, seem like the kind of print media that can really make it without the digital stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and yet they're using both.
Of course, yeah. I mean, you certainly have some people who want both.
Yeah, I like them both personally. In fact, one of the things that I think is cool is, for example, I have a Wired magazine subscription. And they finally wised up, and they make it so that if you have a Wired print subscription, you also get the digital subscription for free. Oh, and one of the things that I really think is cool is Wired Magazine animates their covers and whatnot on the digital editions, and so they're a little bit more interactivity. So I really feel like I'm getting 2 for 1. I'm getting the print whenever I'm, riding in an airplane or in the car, and there's something about having a magazine when you're on an airplane, you know? But at the same time, if I'm somewhere else where I've got my iPad that's running the Wired app, I can see all of the graphs and things animate and watch videos that are integrated. And that's where I think things like The Daily have really forged ahead. The Daily being only an online publication, or rather an in-app publication. They really began to forge ahead in using the medium that they had to animate data and to embed video. And I like to see that some of the online magazines that kind of straddle both worlds are kind of wising up, that people are going to read it, but they're going to do it both ways. And I think that's really cool. So very, very good there. One of the things that we as Catholics do is we pray an awful lot, at least we're supposed to. And it's really cool whenever apps come along that help us do that. And the folks over at Little I Apps, they're the ones who made the confession app that we spoke about a while back, and the one that got a lot of acclaim in the secular media. They've also got a new line of apps called Evotions now. Devotions without the duh. And they're simple little devotional apps. So far, they've got St. Joseph, Blessed John Paul II, and St. I guess that's St. Gianna. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, Gianna.
Gianna. Yeah, here we go. Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah. Oh, Mola, huh? That's
Preta Mola.
Yeah, very cool.
Just make sure you Italianize it. Nobody will notice.
That's right. If you Italianize it, it changes everything. Let's I'm going to switch over to the website here really quick if you're watching us in the video feed. So you can see they've got just some of the artwork there from what you'll see on your handheld device. And let's see, what does it do? I haven't downloaded it yet.
It's a series of depending on which one, has prayers, writings, meditations, and things like that. This is a really good use of what I talked about a couple weeks ago, that Baker format that lets you make an ebook and then turn it into a standalone app for an iOS device.
Uh-huh.
I don't know that they're using that, but I mean, basically you could do something like this. You take something that's in the open domain and you make a really good ebook of it and you make it an app, and then somebody pushes a button and poof, they have a devotional. Huh. And whether you're selling it or not, it's a fantastic way to do some very cool stuff.
Yeah, this is really nice. And so, it's according to this, it says Scott Hahn, Archbishop Chaput, and Lisa Hendy are among the list of contributors to the new series of digital devotions. So you're getting devotional stuff and as well as prayers as well. So that's really cool. Personally, I don't know how you guys feel. How do you feel about having an app that's just yet another icon on your iPhone or your Android device, and having to go to that? Would there be like a one-stop shop, like an IPA thing that you would want to go for all your prayers? Or do you like the idea of having a standalone eVotion app?
Well, personally, I don't like the idea of having the individual apps. I would love to see one big app where you could click on these individuals, even if they were in-app purchases where you had to purchase additional ones. I just don't like having a desktop cluttered on a phone. But also, my big problem with Steel is that there's still a stigma with e-devices, especially when you go into church or whatnot. We talked about this on the show before. So my big deal is that, I'd love to get the devotions, but most of the time whenever I read things like this, it is in Eucharistic adoration in church, and then it never fails. Someone walks in, they see you on your iPhone, and they think, oh, he's playing on his phone.
Right.
And you get the look of doom, like you swear you've just invited Satan in to adoration.
I know the look of doom. That's right.
And I want to go, I'm praying. I just want to shove it in their face. Sometimes.
Maybe you could hold up a sign like Wile E. Coyote praying.
Yeah. I wish that stigma would go away, because I'm sure there was a time when there was a stigma of books. But
well, that's probably true. Yeah. Holding anything other than the missal.
Yeah, that's my big thing but I would like to see it all in one app.
Yeah. I don't know, Father Ryan, do you have, well, I know how you can be about a cluttered desktop, whether it be on your computer.
I'm very OCD about that, and folders, frankly, I find very helpful, at least on my iDevice, being able to make a folder. I would prefer it if they were to do kind of an in-app purchase deal or something where you could choose whatever eVotions you wanted and insert them into the app, and then have, some kind of proprietary format or something that would be able to read them. But I don't mind having, if I was just going to have 3 or 4, because I'm not one of those people that walks into the chapel with 13 of those little tan pamphlets, but I do have 1 or 2, and I wouldn't really mind having 1 or 2, buttons or icons I could put into a folder or put in a separate little section, and just push it. Know that I don't have to navigate. I don't have to do anything complicated. I know what I'm expecting. It's going to come up. It's going to give me a little prayer, a little devotion, little thing. Tap, tap 4 times, and I'm out, rather than having to fish through something like IPA, which is a bit of a nightmare to find anything you actually want.
Very true. You can let us know what you think. Backchat at CatholicUnderground.com. Do you like the idea of eVotions as one app that you make an in-app purchase, or do you like the idea of individual apps that you can then kind of sort into your Catholic folder on your Android or iPhone device? We'd like to know. Well, I don't think anybody was prepared for the level of intensity that came up following the Diocese of Green Bay's recognition that the Virgin Mary did indeed appear in Champion, Wisconsin. And you remember we covered it on the show a little while back. It was Our Lady of Good Help, and it's a shrine up there. And apparently, according to USA Today's Religion section, and Catholic Online, the shrine is one of 12 recognized sites around the world. And there are people coming as far away as Texas and New Orleans and even the South Pacific island of Tahiti to come to Wisconsin to ask the intercession of Our Lady of Good Help. And that's really something. I mean, we covered it because it was the first recognition, I guess you could say, of an official apparition of Our Lady on the soil in the U.S., at least as far as I know.
I just find it amazing that they're getting between 500 to 800 visitors a day.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing. But I mean, it just goes to show you the role that Our Lady plays in the devotion of the faithful. I mean, she's something else, and people know that, and so they willfully go. In fact, you can see if you're watching us on the video feed, they have the little shrine there. So it's not very big, actually, but a beautiful little image there where people can go to pray. So yes, so if you happen to be in Champion, Wisconsin, well, you probably know about the shrine, but go pray over there and pray for Catholic Underground if you don't mind, because Lord knows we need it.
Yeah,
we need all the help that we can get. So that begins kind of the faith chat. I received an internet the other day from a priest friend of mine. It's not a truck.
Became unplugged from a moment, and I received a communique.
That's right. I got an internet from one of my priest friends who actually uses the internet up in the middle of nowhere where his parish is, and he sent from Father Z. And then Father Z received from a friend of his 10 points about prospective priests. And, of course, these are guys who are looking to be seminarians or those who are already seminarians. And we've talked a little bit about kind of the new class, the new crowd, without Dustin Diamond as a member. It's a completely new class. And so there was a little 10-point thing that this guy sent Father Z, and we thought we'd go through it a little bit and just kind of get some comments from the collective peanut gallery here. Number 1, prospective priests, religious or diocesan, are not looking primarily for community life as we live it. They are looking for a church-related mission that they believe in. That's interesting that it's not just a matter of community for the sake of community, but rather it's being in a community of a like-minded group that is centered around the missionary zeal of the church.
This is the only one of these 10 that I don't agree with, actually, because I definitely think diocesan priests are not looking for community life in the same way that has been. But I think religious individuals of all sorts, priests and consecrated virgins, I think are vigorously looking for community, but a more authentic picture of community. A community not lived because of a vague ideology or because of environmentalism or some other cause, but a real, authentic kind of community. When I went to Clear Creek, the monastery, the Ascension of Clear Creek in Oklahoma, what I found there was a community life that was astounding.
True, it really was.
And I talked to a bunch of the young men, and part of the essential reason they were going was because that community gave them a sense of this is how the Lord wants us to live. Yeah. And then that community, of course, gives life and purpose to their duty and their job, which is to pray for the church.
Yeah.
And so I definitely would agree about this for diocesans. But I'm not sure that it's true of religious priests.
And I think it's kind of a both and too. If you are living in a community with a church-related mission that is truly after the heart of the church, then necessarily you're going to seek the community that comes from that. You're going to seek the fruits that come from living in a community that is united by a mission. Whether it's that contemplative prayer as the Benedictines are, whether it's more active like the Franciscans and some of the Dominicans, I think that one really can inform the other, and it's not really an either or, and that would differ from diocesan priesthood.
Yeah, and I think the other part of that equation is that the word community has took on a very, very strong connotation in the 70s and 80s, and it had a very vague
commune type.
Yeah, I mean, it was this kind of weird mixture of whatever I want it to be, plus, this sense of being around people and getting along with people, as opposed to the communia personarum that Pope John Paul II worked so very hard to reestablish. So there's certainly some interesting discussion that could happen there between the priests of yesteryear, the priests of today, and the men in seminary right now.
Yeah, and as usual, Father Earthman, one of our correspondents there in Texas, makes a very good point in the chat room. He says, do you think that this was put on the list because of rectory life as it's lived today? And the thing that we often don't think about in diocesan priesthood, or maybe we do, is that as a presbyterate, we are called to be in a form of community. We are in communio with our bishop and with one another through our common priesthood, through our ministerial ordination. But really, for the most part, nowadays, rectory life is every man for himself. And that can be dangerous in the life of a priest. Some of it can be helpful in the same way that if you live in a religious community, you can go to your cell, for that individual time. But the dioceses, and many of them in the United States and probably all over the world that are facing the priest shortage, really you end up with each diocesan priest in his own monastery of one. And there is a notion of community for the diocesan priest. It's just a little bit different, and so it does make you kind of wonder, what they're getting at with that number one on the post there. Yeah. Prospective priests, number 2. Prospective priests want to know what the Pope teaches, not what the UN teaches. Well,
very true.
That's very true.
Yeah.
I think that this is kind of a no-brainer. Hopefully that any priest would want to know what the Pope teaches, but as in the same way we had this notion in the past of being so plugged into the society, to secular society, and kind of coming at, quote, social justice at that angle, rather than seeing social justice as something that really flows forth from the heart of the church. I mean, really, if you want to talk about social justice, it is the church that seeks it out and goes into it. And really, if you read documents like Rerum Novarum, which was really the seminal document on social justice, you really do begin to see, well, gee, the Pope actually is speaking for somebody, not just himself. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of younger guys that are cluing into discernment for the priesthood really are kind of getting that. We want to know what the Pope teaches. We want to know what's in the heart of the church, and then from there, we can begin to offer a more objective look at, well, what the UN teaches, what are the laws of the land, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Pardon my filibuster. Let's see. Number 3, prospective priests do not want to sit around with older veterans and listen to the latter whine about the Pope, Rome, and the bishops.
Amen to that.
Yeah, and I suppose that the other side of that is, and this is me adding, prospective priests really don't want to sit around with younger priests and just whine about the veterans.
Hear to hear.
That's kind of the thing. I think that, at least, of course, we kind of fit into this category, I suppose, of being younger priests. But I mean, I have no problem listening to experience. I think experience is a very important teacher in terms of how to come across in a diocese, how to minister to its people. But at the same time, if it's just going to be whining about what the Pope's doing wrong, about how Rome is oppressive, and how the bishops have done this, that, and the other, that doesn't really.
Well, I think in general, future priests want solidarity. They want to see priests in solidarity with one another behind the Pope. Right. And when they see this division, even that exists among the priesthood, even still today, where you see some of the older clergy who have this divide from the younger clergy, that could be a big turnoff. Yeah,
sure, absolutely. And in the chat room, or yet another round of bad translation of the liturgy discussion. That's the most recent thing. Is chatting about that. But you're right, and that feeds back into the community thing, Josh. If we are on the same page, if we are in communion with one another, then we may have discussion about what's happening in Rome or about what the Pope has taught, but we're going to be coming at it from the same read, from the same angle. Not immediately suspecting Rome or the Pope,
right?
But saying, well, let's talk about what he said, and I don't really get this, or I can't say that I agree with him 100%, but there's this whole kind of
there's a
launching point,
Yeah, there's a difference between intellectual discussion and downright complaining.
Right. Well, that's very true. That's true. It's very true. Yeah. Number 4, prospective priests are not in favor of women's ordination. Period.
No comment.
It's probably a joke there somewhere. We're not gonna say it. And I think that's pretty self-explanatory, because it harkens to the third one there, is that we don't want to sit around and whine about things, and number 2, we don't want to know what the UN teaches. We want to know what the Pope teaches, and we want to know what Christ teaches, and that's pretty clear. Prospective priests, number 5, do not want to attend masses that resemble hootenannies, Quaker meetings, or Presbyterian services.
Well, That's exactly on the mark. And I'm going to use an example from for a week ago. Annie and I took off and went to Houston for the weekend. And when we were in Houston, we only go to one parish, and that's Our Lady of Walsingham, which is the Anglican Youth Parish there in Houston, which is absolutely beautiful. And we go in, and we're sitting for about 50 minutes, and we see two seminarians walk in from Louisiana who we recognize. And we end up having a conversation with them. And in the midst of the conversation, they tell us, well, we've been to 2 or 3 or 4 different parishes around the area, and it's been a disaster in some of those. So we just started coming here for Mass. And that's a perfect example.
Yeah, I think younger men, the young men that I find that are attracted to seminary life and to the priesthood are interested in beauty. And, there's probably a wider discussion to be had about, how subjective is beauty, when it comes to liturgy. Of course, we understand that it's pretty objective, actually, because beauty is an objective reality. But seminarians want beauty, and prospective priests want beauty, and they're drawn in by things that hearken to the timeless expression of faith by Mother Church. And there are things that are not innovative. They're not making things up out of thin air, but they want things that are grounded. And the liturgy, as it's celebrated through the ages, is grounded. And I think that's why Walsingham is such a beautiful example, is because the Anglican Youth Liturgy is grounded in history, and not just the Anglican patrimony, as it's called, but that's grounded in true Catholic liturgy. And of course, thanks be to God that a lot of it has been recovered in the new pastoral provision, and then the following what you call it, Father Ryan, the Anglican thing.
Oh, the ordinariate.
The ordinariate. There it is. That's what I'm trying to think of.
Well, the other side of that question too is, I think prospective priests are trying very, very seriously to consider what youth ministry needs to look like. And that's still a very real question. There's a lot of seminarians who came out of Life Teen and came out of that vision of youth ministry, and they know inherently that doing that kind of stuff at Mass doesn't make sense. But they also have a strong sense of, but does that make sense as entertainment after Mass? Does that make sense at like a week-long retreat or camp kind of experience? And they're asking those questions very seriously, and I think it's a fantastic thing to see people really ask the question, what does youth ministry look like now? We know what it looked like 20 years ago, we know what it looked like 10 years ago, but we need to know, what does it look like now? Because as a young priest, I don't know. And I think as a lot of seminarians I'm talking to tend to have rather extreme views of hate everything that's not Gregorian chant on one side, or on the other side, if there's not some part of the life, all the kids run away screaming in terror, and there's got to be a middle ground. And I think a lot of the young seminarians are really starting to ask that question, and I wish we had some better answers for them. But it's a question we're going to have to keep considering, with the Holy Spirit for the foreseeable future. So it's a great item to consider.
And two, I think that's what's going to usher more people into considering seminary or religious life, is if the youth ministry programs we're presenting are authentically Catholic, if they're beautiful, if they hearken to expression within the liturgy that is appropriate, then necessarily it's going to mean that people get involved and want to think about religious life. Because, if I'm drawn in by this youth ministry that is so intensely Catholic, that is so intensely liturgical, and really hearkens to the Eucharist, goes straight for the Eucharist, then imagine me giving my life over to something. I mean, personally, I was the product of good youth ministry that was, for the most part, and as much as it could be, intensely Catholic. And those are the things that got me to thinking, well, really, I want to be a part of this the rest of my life. I want this to be a part of the way that I express myself. I want the liturgy to be something that really allows me to speak to other people, because as a priest, it does. You get out of the way, but the Lord is using your voice. And for me, that was a huge, huge sell, if you want, for seminary life and for the priesthood, is that I could be involved in this thing that is bigger than myself, but that is really beautiful. And
that's objective, and that you can see some truth. It's not your own decisions or choices.
That's exactly right. Yeah, it's not something. Catholic Maynooth says Youth 2000. That's a pretty good example. In most Youth 2000 events that I've attended, it's generally very beautiful. It's not terribly innovative in terms of making things up. There are some clever uses of things, but at the same time, young people can be overcome by something that is bigger, something that doesn't just point to itself, and that's, I think, where our prospective priests are looking. Yeah. Number 6, prospective priests are not ashamed of the pro-life movement; they're for it. That's pretty self-explanatory as well. I know that there's a refrain that I hear sometimes, and there's some truth to it, but at the same time, it's almost a kind of a cop-out. Is, well, the pro-life movement isn't just anti-abortion, and so that's kind of a write-off for some people. They're like, well, the pro-life movement today is only abortion related, and so therefore, whenever you get some more. Whenever you start talking about more stuff like euthanasia and capital punishment, then we'll be on board. Until then, I mean, I've heard some vets, if you want, talk about that. But one of the things that prospective priests and younger priests tend to get is that abortion really should be the number one thing that begins to launch the desire for pro-life. Because
just as civil rights was the issue 30 years ago, 40 or 50 years ago now. You have people say, "Oh, but what about taxes and what about the economy?" And people would jump up and scream, "No, civil rights!" And then immediately after that, you had the Vietnam era, and people would say, "What about poverty? What about this?" No, it's all about this. There's always been, or not always, but throughout history, at certain points, there has been an essential focus. Right now, this has come into focus, and our younger men, especially as they study philosophy and better philosophy.
Yeah, that's true.
Not an embarrassment with Thomas Aquinas, but a real sense of good philosophy. They look up and say, "This is obvious." And as they study history, they look up and say, "This is obvious." You don't think about the war between the states and then say, "Let's talk about economic theory." And Marxism. At that point, it was slavery. Slavery's the issue, and while there are other ancillary issues, that's the issue. Right now, the issue is abortion. And people can talk about the 24 people who have been executed in the last 5 years in the United States, as a death penalty issue, or they can talk about this, that, or the other. But abortion is the issue now, and it always comes across as a cop out.
Yeah.
When people say, "Well, I'm this way and I'm that way, and therefore I'm against the pro-life movement," it's always an asinine statement.
I think you're right, Father Ryan, because analogously. If you don't worry about the 2 sores that are on your leg if your arm is hemorrhaging.
That's true.
You deal with the big issue first, and then you can worry about the smaller problems. And in hindsight, the number of abortions that are committed a year do not come anywhere near, as you've pointed out, the number of people who are killed by lethal injection or execution and those who die by euthanasia. You deal with the big problem before you look at the smaller ones. That just makes common sense.
Yeah, it's very true. And a lot of our prospective priests, Father Ryan, you know very well, and Josh, I don't know if you've been to Washington, D.C. for the March for Life. Yeah, you
live there.
That's right, you live there. That's true.
Live coverage.
And that's the thing, is if you look at these young men that are very happy to be in clerics marching with their high schools for the diocese and things like that, they're not just there because they can be there in a collar. They're there because they believe firmly that the church has a voice with this, and so they certainly are not ashamed of the pro-life movement. In fact, I've seen seminarians dialoguing with a lot of the protesters at the March for Life, and doing so with great charity, with great love. And I think that's a beautiful image of what's to come in the church. You mean
the 85-year-old protesters?
Well, yeah, there are some young, but not as many as it seems to be the older crowd that didn't have things go their way after Roe versus Wade, or rather they did, and now it's slowly beginning to shift. No, let's see. Number 7, prospective priests do not want to hear their brothers mock the Pope and gripe about liturgical norms. Well,
I think that could be rolled into number 3.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Number 8, prospective priests do not want to study at theological unions / seminaries that are embarrassed by Catholic teaching, or I would add by Catholic identity. And that
was the one.
Yeah. And in fact, we see all over, where seminarians are choosing to go to different dioceses because the diocese that they would have studied for only sends them to seminaries that are either questionable in the theology that they teach, or they're well known for being kind of disparate and out of tune with what the church is actually teaching.
Or you fall into the fate of Louvain.
Or well, and nobody wants to say that.
Yeah, it's true though.
But we know, Father Ryan, you and I and Josh, we know men who went to study at Louvain during that very difficult time for it, where it was studying or it was struggling with the culture that was going on not only in Europe but specifically in that part of Belgium, the kind of that post-conciliar reactive culture. And I dare say that some of that had to do with its demise, and nobody really wants to say that. Everybody wants to say, "Oh, well, it's just numbers," And Catholic Maynooth says, "Well, what are we supposed to do in Ireland?" Ireland's another good example of a very Catholic nation. In fact, I can't speak with any degree of truth just because I don't know the situation. But there used to be several seminaries there in Ireland, and now Maynooth was the only one that was open as a national seminary. And there's a lot of cultural things going on there. And I guess to respond to Catholic Maynooth, I guess the only thing would be to send to other seminaries outside of the country, that are reputable seminaries. But this isn't an easy one because there are a lot of seminaries that are still trying to get in line with what the church teaches because there was such a long time of that kind of, as I call it, 52 pickup theology that was in charge.
And there are still a handful of those schools that are actually going the other way. Kind of a last breath of a few recalcitrant or bishops who are left over. Who are insistent on pushing various agendas. And some of those schools will die in mediocrity, and that may be the very best thing for them. And it's sad, and it's in a certain sense it's pathetic. But people who've devoted their entire lives to an ideology that they're watching collapse around them. It's a heroic effort to say I put my money in the wrong
slot machine.
Sure. That analogy fell apart. But I put all my energy behind the wrong direction, and now I'm going to have the courageous, almost saintly humility to say I was wrong, and now I'm going to put my energy behind this right way. That's tough, and there's not a lot of people who can do it.
Humility is really at the basis of all of this. If we're humble to the church, we're humble, and we say that she is wise. And if we're humble to the movement of the Spirit, then these things just kind of are almost common sense. Of course, it's easiest for us to say. We're a podcast here in the ivory tower, but we do have to deal with this day to day. And who knows, Father Ryan, you may be the vocation director in the future, or
God help them.
Heaven forbid I become the vocation director in the future.
God help them.
That's right, exactly. But that's very true. Let's see, and so we got number 9. Prospective priests know that Vatican II was not the only or even the most important ecumenical council. And, well, that's very true. Vatican II certainly was very important in modernity, but there were many other councils that were actually quite a bit more of a bombshell in their day that have helped to build a greater understanding and even a greater love for the splendor of truth that actually fueled what became the Second Vatican Council. And it's really awesome to be able to say that there are seminarians who truly desire to know what the Second Vatican Council taught in its document, not just the spin. And they also want to know what the First Vatican Council taught. They want to know what Trent taught. They want to know what Chalcedon taught. They want to know what Nicaea taught. The
recovery of Trent is a gigantic thing that's going on right now, because a lot of people try to paint Trent as simply a reactionary council.
Yeah.
But it was a sincerely thought out and lengthy council that said, here's where we are. They really did look at the future and say, here's where we're going to be. And they said, let's define Catholicism in a clear, succinct, direct way. And there's been a lot of teaching. I've argued with some very faithful priests about a number of issues that have come up in quote-unquote teaching documents that have come out, that not as part of the Second Vatican Council, not part of Vatican I, that have just come out from teaching documents. I think the diaconate stuff is very, very relevant to this. There's a lot of stuff come out of these documents that is not cited. It has no basis in conciliar or papal teaching. And the recovery of documents like Trent, and the recovery of the writings of Athanasius, and the how were the early heresies that we're seeing again, like Gnosticism and Arianism. How do you deal with those? And we're finally getting professors and seminarians who are willing to go back and read those documents and say, this is how you do it. And of course, as Father Earthman says in the chat room, the interwebs make it possible. It's the 3D acrylic bubble that makes it happen.
That's very true. And that's something I think that professors are becoming more and more accepting and desiring of, is that their students are reading the sources that are now available in e-reader format and on the Vatican website and just about everywhere else, because there is a greater chunk of the truth that we're able to get really at our hands, right in our hands, and that's an awesome thing, and that can only make for a stronger expression of our Catholic identity, and that's what I think is probably going to begin to renew the universities and the seminaries, is the students themselves saying, no, this is what we want. We know this is the truth, and we're seeing it happen in some of our local seminaries. That some of the professors are finally coming around, or they've been waiting for a voice to say, yeah, the church is bigger than just this little 45 to 50 year span that we're in the middle of. And then, of course, number 10, prospective priests are not embarrassed by Marian devotion. They are seen praying the rosary. I think that's almost a self-explanatory thing. Is so many seminarians, myself included, Father, perhaps you as well, Mary had a very important part to play in my vocation, my discernment. And I often recall in the last 2 weeks before I went to the seminary, I was under extreme attack. And, of course, I wouldn't have called it that at the time. I didn't know what it was. But I was under extreme attack, and out of nowhere, the rosary all of a sudden kind of popped up in my life. And I remember, I was a senior in high school, about to graduate, and I had never really learned to pray the rosary before, and so I had to find, dig through stuff and find my little How to Pray the Rosary booklet, and it really was a gift from Our Lady to say, okay, look, we got these 2 weeks to go. You're going to be under a great attack here. You don't know what's happening, but let me help you out. And it really was the rosary that kind of gave me that push to resist just the nonsense that happens before you make a big decision and to move into the seminary. And she watched after me and still does, thanks be to God. And I think prospective priests are really rediscovering that love that Our Lady has for her priests and the ones whom God is calling to discern. Yeah. That's all there is to say about that. Yeah. So before we go to our picks of the week, we want to talk about Catholicon, because it's rapidly approaching, isn't it, Joshua?
That is correct. Only 9 more days to get your tickets at the $35 price, because come the 15th, they're going to go up to $50. And we've been seeing a lot of registrations over the past few days. People are getting themselves in, but if you're going to come, you want to make sure you get your ticket at that $35 price and not have to buy the $50.
That's right, because they are going to go up to 50, which is still a steal as things go.
Right. Yeah. We're definitely not making the conference on the registration fees. The registration fees are to pay for incidentals and things like that, but we're relying on sponsors, and we thank, of course, all of our sponsors, Catholic TV. Father Chris and I were actually on Catholic TV last week on
That's right.
This Is the Day, so make sure and thank them, our Sunday Visitor, the Module Center for Faith and Reason, all of those groups, as well as those other sponsors who are constantly coming on board, who are going to be there showing you their wares and whatnot at Catholicon. Again, that's August 26th through 28th, the Intercontinental near the Galleria in Houston. Those hotel rooms can be registered at CatholiconExpo.com. There's the group code right there. And deeply discounted, $99 a night. And these are some really, really nice rooms.
They are.
I love this hotel now.
Yeah, in fact, I know Josh and I need to make another preliminary visit to Houston, and we're trying to decide. We're pretty sure we're going to stay at the Intercontinental again.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, just because it's such a beautiful hotel, and the environment is wonderful. It's going to be great for Catholicon. And really, if you think about it, if you don't count the travel, $235 for a conference is pennies.
That's it for the entire weekend, really.
For the entire weekend, for what you're going to get the liturgies that are beautiful. Father Z is going to be there. He'll be celebrating some of those liturgies. He'll be doing Mass in the extraordinary form and in the ordinary form. And we're also going to, of course, have Liturgy of the Hours. And we have a beautiful Schola choir that's going to be singing, going to be providing the music. And, of course, all those opportunities for networking, for coming together in your circles, whether you have Google Plus or not. And also, you're going to have Claire Camp. Claire Camp's going to be awesome. Just ways for you to discern how the Lord might be calling you into digital media, into the digital continent. But also, you'll be able to get some hands-on experience. And so we're really excited about that. So again, August 26th through the 28th, $35 for an adult ticket. If you want to look at the family options, if you're a seminarian, clergy, or religious, you're going to look at those options, all at CatholiconExpo.com. That's the way to do it. And we are really, really excited. So make sure you give Catholicon Expo a visit this week, CatholiconExpo.com. All right. Well, without further ado, I think it's time for us to go to what we like to call here on the Catholic Underground, the CU Pick of the Week. And for our first CU Pick of the Week, I guess we'll go over to Josh. How's that sound?
Well, my pick of the week is actually a book that I had the intuition for some reason to pick up again. And it is an introduction to the devout life by St. Francis de Sales.
Oh, wow.
And this book has the hallmark. It became a real piece of my life, an important piece of my life early on in my seminary studies, because the hallmark of this book is that it was created and known as really the first book that was aimed at the person who lives in the world, who works a job, who deals with secular people on a daily basis, who's not cooped up in a monastery or religious house. But it was really focused at that individual on how to gain holiness in this life. Because what St. Francis de Sales saw was that so many people were simply thinking that
it was impossible.
Right. It was absolutely impossible because you lived in the world that you simply had to be around sin and all of these things, and you could never gain the level of holiness that individuals who lived in monasteries did. And so what he wrote is this book, which is broken up into very, very short sections, so you can read them in bits and pieces at a time. I find it's really good before going to bed. You can read a small section, then just put it away, or a section or two. And it gives you tidbits and practical pieces of knowledge on how to live the devout life.
So before there was Opus Dei,
yeah,
there was St. Francis de Sales. In fact, and just kind of some of my cursory reading of Blessed Josemaria Escriva's stuff, there's a lot of Francis de Sales in what he's talking about. Yeah. The language is kind of just adjusted a little bit. So Introduction to the Devout Life, that's really cool. Very cool. Well, my pick of the week is something that I ran across that I just kind of thought it was fun. And, if I've got something fun, then I'm going to share it with you. And so let's see if I can get the computer to work over here. We'll go over to, there we go, Building Boba. It is a guy named Nate Picos. He runs blambot.com, and that's where I get my comic fonts from whenever I do comic book stuff. He is building a Boba Fett costume from the ground up, and he's taking you through the whole thing. So all the vacuum form molding, the painting, where he's getting everything in, like the jetpack he's presently making it, and of course the gauntlets and all that stuff to make a full and complete costume. And so that if you want a good kind of time waster and just to see how industrious geeks can be, we'll leave that in the show notes. It's buildingboba.blogspot.com, B-O-B-A, buildingboba.blogspot.com. So that's my pick of the week. So let's go over to Father Ryan for his pick of the week, because I'm sure it's going to be twice as cool as building a Boba Fett replica costume.
Nothing could be cooler than building a costume made for a clone. Many people know that Otto von Habsburg is a crown prince of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, of the Holy Roman Empire, and so on and so forth. Died this week at the age of 95. It really is kind of the end of an era. Well, there are a number of books worth reading about Otto von Habsburg, but the one I'm recommending is called Uncrowned Emperor, The Life and Times of Otto von Habsburg. Habsburg. It's definitely not the kind of thing that amateur readers or people who are just going to enjoy this while aboard the porcelain throne are going to want to read. This is a serious work of history, but it reads lightly enough to sit on the porch or sit on an easy chair and read. It's not a scientific work. I recommend it highly. It's a very, very well put together book. There are a few minor factual errors that you can look in, and your edition may actually indicate some typo kind of things.
Yeah.
But it's worth reading. That's an era in history that is grossly misunderstood by a lot of people
and underread.
And underread. And most people nowadays tend to think that monarchy is some kind of fundamental evil, and it really is not. And it's something that should be understood well before making those kind of judgments. And so if you're a history fan, if you're a fan of excellent stories of intrigue and royal people being royal, Otto von Habsburg is the one you want to read about. And so I'm recommending that book, and that link is in the show notes. And then also I'd like to thank Audible.com. Their sponsorship of the Catholic Underground. Audible is the world's leading supplier of audiobooks and spoken word digital audio. If you surf to audibletrial.com/Catholic Underground, you're going to get 2 weeks free to try this service out. The gold plan is going to offer you one audiobook every month, and it's going to give you access, and most people don't remember this, to tons of free and discounted material, books, magazines, even daily newspapers like the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. If you can turn your commute, your drive time, your time at the gym, or your yard work into something that really is going to improve your mind and keep you thinking about something spiritual. And so this week, in honor of St. Benedict's feast, which is on the 11th, which will take place before our next podcast, I'm recommending The Holy Rule of St. Benedict. It's about 3 hours to listen to the whole thing, and it regularly costs $11. As I said, you're going to get it free by going to audibletrial.com/Catholic Underground. And so surf over there, help us out, and help yourself out.
Very cool. Very cool. Yes, and thanks again to Audible for continuing to support us. All of you who are going to audibletrial.com. Alrighty, for links in our Twitter feed, you can go to our Facebook page at catholicunderground.com/Facebook, or you can just go to catholicunderground.com and get all of that stuff, because it's all there in that one spot. If you want more information on Catholicon, and we hope that you do, we're pretty sure that you do, then we would like to ask you to go over to catholiconexpo.com, catholiconexpo.com. All right, joining us, because you knew he would, he can't be stopped, Joshua LeBlanc, who is the special liaison to the lactose intolerant community at cybercatholics.com. He joins us, and he's at JR LeBlanc on Twitter. Thank you, Josh.
I had to sell all of my stock in milk just to take that position. I hope you know.
That's right. And milk is trading pretty high these days. I don't know if you've been to the store recently.
Everything in soy.
That's right. We got water, we got cup, we got coffee, we got soy milk for the lactose intolerant community. We got it for everybody. Father Ryan's church is online, and they have soy milk at camptecatholicchurch.com. All of his personal posts, and we mean personal, are on Twitter. He is at FR Humphreys. Thank you, Father Ryan.
Good pleasure.
Actually, you didn't offer me my complimentary orange juice and browse of the Daily Mail when I was visiting in Campty this past week, but it's okay. I'll let you slide this once. At any rate, and you know me, I'm Father Chris Decker. You can follow me at Twitter at Digital Catholic. Thanks for tuning in and hanging around this digital continent with us. We're Catholic Underground, and we're faith gone digital. We'll see you next time.
From the Catholic Underground.